Hello and welcome to Mabinda TV. So for now, I'm looking at the contemporary issues of the day. So for now, I'm looking at the death of Pope Francis. So Pope Francis is dead. So he is dead at 88 years old. So what is the legacy of Pope Francis? Then I'll be looking at the trade tariffs of Donald Trump. What is the impact of Donald Trump's trade tariffs on the world? And then of course, I'm looking at that is basically the situation in Africa, the unfolding situation in South Sudan. So, why do you think there are a lot of conflicts in African countries? So, let's start with the death of Pope Francis. So, Pope Francis is dead at 88 years of age. So, of course, his legacy is conflicted. Of course, he was about bringing social justice in the world. That is, Pope Francis was all about bringing social justice in the world. So basically, to liberals, he did not go far enough, for instance, for allowing women bishops in the Catholic Church or for allowing, that is, gay bishops in the Catholic Church. So for liberals, Pope Francis did not go far enough. And then, of course, but for conservatives, they say he pandered so much to the liberal wing. So basically, they want him to be able to trim down, the basically to be able to trim down and basically return the Catholic Church to its conservative roots. So that's Pope Francis. But really, what is the impact of the church in our world today? Maybe even in Africa. What is the impact of the church? I think the church just provides. I think in a BBC mock debate between the late Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins, they say religion is a force, is not good for the world. Of course, one, I think Christopher Hitchens says religion is bad to the world. It has brought harmful, basically wars have been started because of religion. Look at the empire, look at the crisis in Gaza. Basically, some of it is because of religion, and I don't think we should be able to I don't think we quite know how much. So some people say what we should be advocating for is that it is spirituality, not religion. But I think in places such as Africa, I think religion has, the church has done wonders in Africa. Basically, a lot of African states are collapsing, so the church is filling in that void, and maybe basically, and that's what is happening. The church is filling in the void of the state that is not functioning. So far from religion being an opium of the poor, then I think it is really far from religion being an opium of the poor. I think it is filling in the void. It is providing structure, and I think in places such as Africa, what will build Africa up, or maybe even Latin America or some other places, is what I would say is individual dynamism. Someone starting a school. So as soon as the church is successful, what does it do? It builds a school. It builds a hospital. It builds a shoe factory. It starts a supermarket. That is how the church is able to transcend all levels and become really these behemoths that supplies jobs, that basically manufactures jobs. And maybe I think individual dynamism is what will help Africa. I think individual dynamism is what will help Africa. Look at all these people that are running away to politics. Our politicians are not doing anything at all. Politicians in Africa are not doing anything at all, and this is why I say that religion is what will I think individual dynamism is what will propel Africa forward. So that's it about Africa being a place of that is individual dynamism. So Pope Francis really advocated for social justice. He warned about the inequalities both within and without countries. And Pope Francis said that these countries are basically I think we have witnessed so much huge wealth inequality. Some few people have everything, and then the sea of the masses have nothing at all. And I think this was corroborated by Mother Teresa. She said she has never seen a country so rich and yet so poor like America is. And that is, she had seen America as basically she had seen America that it has so many, it had wealth that was opulent, but then again, at the same time, it had 60 million poor people. So basically, I think right now, what we need to be doing is having more wealth gap, bringing everyone to the same starting lineup through equality of opportunity. Of course, some people say we can't all be equal, that some people are more hardworking than others, some people are more skilled, some people are more talented, but I think we need to be bringing everyone to the same starting lineup. That is how we are going to enhance our country. So that's Pope Francis fighting for social justice. That is Pope Francis fighting for social justice. So basically, I think that's it. That is Pope Francis. I think now, of course, some people are saying the Ghanaian bishop, cardinal, that is Peter Turkson, could be in the running. The odds are 5-1 in order to become the first black pope. But that's not actually true. There have been black popes before. There have been black popes before. What is just not evident is that in those early days there was no racism, so they weren't assigned as African. In those early days there was no racism. So of the 266 popes, there have been African popes, but in those days there weren't this racism was not there, so you didn't need to assign that this was African. So basically, you had black popes before serving as popes, but of course, they were not assigned as Africans. So that's it. Then I will go on to the issue of the trade tariffs. What will be the impact of Donald Trump trade tariffs? What will be the impact of Donald Trump trade tariffs, where basically Donald Trump is instituting a series of tariffs on countries? But of course, he paused that for 90 days. But kept the tariffs on China, which are about up to 235%. So basically, Donald Trump wants to cause the rest of the countries of the world not to take in Chinese goods. So of course, Donald Trump wants the Made in America brand to be so awesome, so that then America gets to produce more at home. Remember, the American middle class is disappearing, and one of the promises of Donald Trump during the campaign trail is that he would restore the middle class. Donald Trump had stated that he would restore the middle class, and basically that means more manufacturing at home, but that is not happening. So who is the target? China is the target. So that's how Donald Trump then gets to be able to that is target China with its trade tariffs. And I think what really is important is that the rules of international trade rules need to be applied. I think the United States needs to compete also on innovation, not just on prices alone. Also in innovation, or for instance, in the making of toys, China is so far ahead in that technology. Look at artificial intelligence. China has come up with DeepSeek that at least is more powerful, uses less semiconductors than than America's ChatGPT. So you can see China is ahead on so many fronts. So America needs to compete also on innovation, not just on price cuts. It needs to compete on innovation, and I think that's how then America will be able to. And that's how I think America will be able to basically move forward. But I think the trade tariffs need not affect countries. I think for Africa they were slapped with about 10% tariffs most of the African countries, and I think that is not just the way to go about it. I think African countries must be able to do more in order to have a free trade area and trade more with each other. I think into Africa trade is just 10%. That needs to increase to just over maybe 50-60%, like into America, into North America, into Europe, or into Asia Pacific trade. So that's it about Donald Trump trade tariffs. So do you think it will hurt the world economy? How will it affect Africa? How will it affect America? That is the Trump trade tariffs. So I think that is something that we will be looking at closely. That is the Trump trade tariffs. So that's it for the Trump trade tariffs. And then finally, I'm looking at, so this is more superficial, this is more aspirational. Who do you think the three leaders that will have made Africa a superpower. I think to be a superpower, a country needs to have political power, economic power, and social cultural power. So I think in political power, the leader who will have made Africa a superpower is no doubt Kwame Nkrumah. He used to say that basically seek ye first the political kingdom and everything else shall be added unto you. You had the Afro-Caribbean George Padmore believed that Kwame Nkrumah will be the one to liberate the black nation. Of course, the young Nkrumah pro-African government was overthrown in a CIA-led coup. So basically, George Padmore did not get to see his aspiration come to life. So that is George Padmore. That is Kwame Nkrumah seeking for the political kingdom, and everything else shall be handed to you. Of course, the CIA would overthrew his government, young pro-African government, while he was on a visit to China. Then the second economic power that goes to Thomas Sankara. In just 4 years, Thomas Sankara had transformed Burkina Faso, and I think he has his later day follow, Ibrahim Traore. Ibrahim Traore basically now coming back to restore that country, and of course you have people wishing that Ibrahim Traore would be the best leader that Africa has. So you have Ibrahim Traore, and of course you have the hand of France in wanting to topple or to assassinate him. You had a group of soldiers, those who were guarding Ibrahim Traore, coming along and saying that we have been paid $5 million in order to eliminate you, but we will not do it because going to we are going to be loyal to you, Mr. Ibrahim Traore. So you have Ibrahim Traore as a later day reincarnation of Thomas Sankara. Then finally, social cultural power, I think that it goes, of course, you had Thomas Sankara withdraw from the IMF and World Bank. I think that's why he was killed by his friend and compatriot, that is Blaise Compaoré, with the blessings of France. I think France has destabilized a lot of African countries, and I think it is a running theme we need to examine. Why has France destabilized so many African countries? I think it is a running theme that we need to be looking at. I don't think these countries got independence at all. No. I think, of course, I'm not saying the British colonizers were any better, but I'm just saying for the French it was worse. They took over your economy, they took over your military, and so you had France has assassinated a total of 22 African presidents ever since independence. So you can't see how very much France is doing to African countries. Then the third, the social cultural pillar that goes on to Steve Biko, the anti-apartheid liberation hero. He said a black consciousness movement that is basically be proud of blackness, be proud of blackness, and of course you have colorism, that is preference for light skin, where for instance a French, a successful French black family is painted as one where an African male is married to a white or biracial woman. So basically then the blackness will disappear in a generation or two. So that is social cultural power. Steve Biko basically saying a black consciousness movement where black is beautiful, and we should aspire for black cultural power to be able to come back, because these days the war is not in the forest, the war is in the content we consume, the war is in our sitting room, the war is in our the books we read, is in the movies we watch, is in the songs we listen to. So I think that is how Africa basically will be able to come back. So you let me know or not you think the three leaders that will have transformed Africa. So that's it for now. I've looked at Pope Francis, basically what will be his impact in Africa, in the world, what is the legacy of Pope Francis, and of course I've looked at Donald Trump tariffs, how will they affect Africa, and finally I have looked at basically which three leaders will have made Africa a superpower. So bye for now, till the next time. Bye for now.